It's Tuesday, December 29, 2020, episode number 147. $700,000 in student loan. Can I buy an $850,000 house? This is 39.6 Facebook and YouTube Live Finance Show, a show that teaches high earners like yourselves how to make your money work for you so you don't have to work for your money. We talk general investing, taxes, real estate, syndications, Airbnb, paying for childcare, paying for college, and even the car you drive. Today's question comes from an anonymous poster in the White Coat Investor Forum regarding to buy or not to buy a home. The post says, "Hi, I am looking for advice on home buying. My husband and I are both newer attendings with a combined income of at least $430,000. He is going to be partner in a few weeks and is productivity based and will be getting bonuses, at least presumptively. And so after he becomes partner, starting July of 2021, their annual income should go in excess of $430,000. Now he has $288,000 left in student loans. They are aggressively paying these off. They have a 10-year loan at 3.65%, but they pay $7,000 to $9,000. I calculated a 10-year loan of 3.65% with that principal balance of $288,000. I don't know if that's what it was when it was initially started, but that would be about $2,900 a month. Okay, so I'm assuming it's probably a little more than $3,000 if they got the loan a bit ago. Now the poster has a $415,000 balance in student loans. That's a lot of student loan debt. I don't know how people get student loan debt that high unless I know the Caribbean programs can be a lot more expensive. Or I guess this private school and high cost of living and years of interest accruing. But the person is going for public service loan forgiveness, PSLF, and has 4 years left. Okay, oops, I just lost my screen. Okay, 4 years left. They have no other debt. Well, that's really good because they have $700,000 of debt right there. It says, we have been renting out our current spot for 1.5 years and plan to stay in this area for the long term. They're both happy with their jobs. This area is, quote, very high cost of living, and our townhouse rent is $2,600 per month. Now, to me, $2,600 per month is not very high cost of living. Like very high cost of living is like $6,000 a month for a townhouse. To me, that sounds super reasonable. Maybe high, but not very high. We started looking at houses, and for the kind of property we want, with some acreage and close to national forest. These have always been important to us. The houses are $800,000 to $850,000. Starter houses here are $500,000 to $600,000. Now, that part I find interesting because a townhouse is $2,600. To me, a townhouse is basically a starter home. $500,000 to $600,000. That means that the land value is most of that. And if this is a very high cost of living area, starter houses would be a lot more than $500,000. Like if you're in San Francisco, you're not buying a house for $500,000. I mean, I don't know what you get for $500,000, like a garage in San Francisco, maybe. We are struggling with the dilemma between continuing to rent, parentheses, not ideal. I've always wanted to raise my kid on some land and he's almost 2. Okay, now this is interesting because I don't know why you can't have land and rent at the same time. The next option would be getting a less expensive home that we do not love, okay, and spending so much on a home that we do love when we still have so much debt. We would appreciate any input. Okay, now I don't know if this is broadcasting properly because I haven't seen things pop up here. Okay, but I hope it's working. All right, so first of all, okay, we're gonna just do some graphics here. The total net income is total gross income is $430,000. Okay, and I'm gonna show you this tax graph that I show all the time, and that's to get an idea of how much tax is being paid. Okay, so if you have $430,000 and you're married, $430,000 of income means that your federal income tax is going to be around $90,000. Okay, so that's like $7,500 per month is going to total federal income tax. So that puts your net income at like $340,000. Okay, just so you have an idea of what your federal tax bill is. Now, I'm going to break this down and make it monthly, though, to make it a little bit simpler. And what I did for visualization is I took out a bunch of cash and I counted out. So if you have $430,000, I didn't take $430,000 of money out of the bank because they wouldn't give me that many dollar bills. But what I did do is I took out 10, 20, 30. This is a stack of 10 $1 bills, 10 $1 bills, and another 10 $1 bills. And 6 $1 bills over here. Okay, thank you, Facebook user, for saying hi. That's how I know that at least one person is in here. Although something is being weird because it's not showing that anybody is actually watching it, which does not make sense. Okay, so we have $36. And so that $36 is basically your gross income per month. Okay, so 10, 20, 30, and then an extra 6. Okay, there you go. So that's your gross income per month, 430 divided by 12. So then per month, you're paying about $7,500 in federal income tax. So I'm going to take out these $6 represent 6,000. Okay, so then let's just say another 7. Okay, then I'm left with $29,000. Okay, about. Now, so 10 and 20 and then 9. But you have to pay Social Security and Medicare, and that's going to be another $2,000. Okay. So between all of these, you end up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Between all of these, from the 35,800 or 36,000 that you start with, and then you subtract about $10,000 of all your taxes, then you end up with about $26,000. Okay, 10, 20, and 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so $26,000 you're left with per month just of net income. So here's your $26,000, and of this, you have to invest at least about 20% of your income per month just to potentially retire in 30 years. Okay. Thank you, Facebook user, for letting me know there's multiple people in here. I know there have to be a lot of people in here because, or at least a handful, but for some reason it still says 0. So anyway, we're at 26,000 and we're going to take out 5,000 of this as your investment per month. Now it's interesting because in the post, it says that they're paying down the loans aggressively. So paying down like 7,000 to 9,000 per month above and beyond the minimum, which is probably around 3,000. So it sounds like to me they're putting an extra 4,000 to 6,000 per month into student loan payments, which further leads me to think they're not actually investing money into a taxable brokerage. And I don't know if they're investing money in any other accounts because none of that is mentioned in the long post. And it's super important to know where all the money is going. So maybe they're not investing anything, but if we're going to just save 20% of our post-tax, you could do 20% pre-tax, 20% post-tax, doesn't really make a difference, but 20%, $5,000. So you're left with $21,000 here. Okay, so $21,000 left, and we haven't paid any of our student loans. So if we pay the minimum payment, $1,000 to $3,000 to the guy's student loans, and then to the original poster, I'm just going to assume she's female, okay, that she is paying 1, 2, 3, 4, about $5,000 a month for those federal student loans. I calculated that $415,000 balance. I don't know what interest rate that is, but it's 6.8% is what they were for many years. That's what mine were at. So I just plugged in $415,000 at 6.8%. That's $4,800 a month. But the balance that 6.8% is based on is probably higher than the $415 that it's at right now. So I'm going to assume that's $5,000. And if you're doing PSLF, you have to keep paying that original interest rate. So you can't refinance that down to a lower number, and you're going to be paying that for 4 more years. So you're probably going to get some of that $400,000 washed away, maybe about half of it, but you're still throwing like $5,000 a month in the meantime. Okay, so how much are we left with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, about 12,000. I could be off by a little bit because of some rounding. I actually, on paper, it came out to about 13,000 something. So I was gonna take 1,000 back. So I'm down to like $13,000 a month. So $13,000 a month, that's how much after paying income tax, paying student loans, and putting 20% away. So this is how much you can spend, okay? And $13,000 is way more than most Americans live off of. So 13,000 is a lot, right? Although it's a far cry from what you started out at $36,000 a month. It's crazy. You lose 10,000 to tax, 5,000 invested, and 9,000 or 8,000 goes to loans, and yeah, you're not left with much. Okay, so at least for the next 4 years, if you're paying the minimum student loan amounts on both amounts, you only have $13,000 left. So if you take $3,000 a month, that's what you're paying for your townhouse. Okay, townhouse. So then you're left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, $10,000. Okay. You have a 2-year-old kid. I don't know if you're planning on having more kids. Didn't hear anything about the cost of childcare, but if you're in a high cost of living area, childcare is not cheap. I mean, you may be able to go do the daycare route, and that might only cost you a couple $1,000s a month. Okay. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, $8,000 a month left for cars, food, travel, extras. Okay. If you need a nanny, you might be paying like $4,000 a month. So then you're left with $6,000, and you only have 1 kid right now. I don't know how many kids you're planning on having. But if you are planning on having more kids, and you might have 1 nanny and 1 in daycare or things like that, this money's gone pretty fast. But the question is not about how many kids I'm having and whatnot, but it's about, can I afford the more expensive house? Okay, so we're going to come back to having all the money that we had, $13,000. So if we get a more expensive house, if we go get the $850,000 house, let's pretend we get it for 0 down at 3.5% with like a doctor loan. The principal and interest will be about $3,800. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And if you're paying property tax and insurance, you're easily paying another $1,000 a month there. So you're looking at, let's just say $5,000 a month. 1, 2, 3, 4, $5,000 a month in order to pay for that $850,000 house. Now, that does not sound a lot worse than the $2,000 like $900 you're paying for the townhouse. The townhouse, or the 2,000, I don't know, 2,900, 2,000 something for the townhouse. It was 2,600. Okay, so basically you're doubling your housing cost, but people always underestimate what the cost of owning a house is. They think it's just going to be their mortgage payment and property tax. That's just the starting price. Like when you own a property, you have to do all the repairs and maintenance. And if you rent, you're not paying for those. All homeowners underestimate their cost of repairs and maintenance in both time and money, as well as stress. Okay. So we were at $5,000. Let's just say an extra $1,000 a month in terms of additional repairs and maintenance. A lot of times people use like 1% of the cost of the property as a annual estimate. So that'll be like $8,000 per year. So it's like $600, $700 a month. But you're also going to have higher utilities than you had in your town. So let's just throw another $1,000 there. So you're ending up going from $2,600 up to like $6,000 a month. Now you have $7,000 left. This is to pay for childcare or school, food, travel, everything. So yeah, you can afford it. If you're okay living without a lot of margin. Now, after 4 years are done and you hit your public service loan forgiveness, then that opens up $5,000 of cash flow. Okay, so that's a lot easier to work with. That extra $5,000 can obviously, that's basically the cost of the home, right? And by that time, you've also probably paid down a lot of the other student loans, and that's, instead of being like $300,000, is down to you're 4 years into it, you're probably down to like 150 or so. Okay. So not much left. But if we're going at this rate and just investing $5,000 a month and paying down these loans, your net worth, I mean, you're starting at negative $700,000. Okay. You're investing $60,000 a year and you're paying around $90,000 plus to your student loans every year. So that's a good amount of money, but it's still going to take you like 4 years just to get to net worth zero. Okay, now I don't know how old you are right now. Okay, probably lower 30s. I don't know if you're mid or upper 30s. That actually makes a significant difference in terms of, you know, how many more years you really have earnings wise. And I don't know if you really both plan to work full time for the next 30 years. Okay. If you are even slightly considering cutting back to like, I don't know, 80% or 60% for one of the two people, I mean, that could be the complete difference of, I mean, what all the money is that's left. I mean, if you cut down one income by $50,000, you're basically out of all your extra money. So you can't eat. This is living on a relatively thin margin, at least the way I think about it, because I mean, you start out with 38,000 and now you're like, you only have a few $1,000s left at the end of the month, every single month. You could have a bad month and you're cash flow negative. You never want to be cash flow negative on a month, especially as two basically W-2 earners, it sounds like, or if you have a partner, if one of them is a partner, but you still have like kind of a steady stream of income, you don't want to ever really be cash flow negative. So mathematically, yeah, it's feasible. It's painful for me to see a situation at negative $700,000 and taking on $800,000 more debt. I mean, you're at $2,600 a month right now. To me, that's pretty good price for a townhouse. I mean, if you went up to like a $500,000 house, it's really probably not that much more. But I also don't know what area this is, how rapidly it's appreciating. Sometimes if you're in a really highly appreciating area and there's good data to support that it's highly appreciating for the next 5 to 10 years, then there is an argument to buy the nicer house now so that you get it before the prices just keep pricing you out. But buying your house is not an investment, right? And you're basically chucking so much cash into an expense. And it's really hard to build margin and build up any financial security. What happens if one person can't work at the amount that's expected? How much is your disability coverage? Is it going to replace all of your income? I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. Oh, and we did not mention state tax. If you're like in California, gosh, I don't know, another 7% tax or so. Sorry. That's another $28,000. That's another $2,500 per month. So then you're really thin. So I don't know what that is, because I don't have that information. But this is a really tough position to be in. It's painful to see doctors at $700,000 in debt. Granted, one of them is a partner starting next year, and I don't know how much that income is going to go up. It would be really nice to see all of that. It would be nice to see the partner income go up and like double. I don't know what it really is. But it says you're at 430,000. One of them, so it sounds like maybe you're making like 200, a little bit over 200 each, and then maybe one of them might go up to 400. So maybe you'll bring in another 200,000. I'm not sure. But gosh, I would really want to get to net worth zero before buying a house that's like twice my income. I would really like a mortgage to be like 1 time your income. That's like a really safe position to be at. But when you have this much student debt, your student debt is like twice your income right now. So that's really tough. I mean, if you're at PSL in 4 years, I mean, if you could get a $500,000 house for 4 years or so, and then upgrade, that seems more reasonable. Maybe buy a property that could be a rental property if you're even interested in real estate. I mean, you could consider buying a property that could become a future rental property, but you'd have to make sure the numbers worked out as a rental property first. But going back to the original question, there are certain things the person mentions that don't necessarily, to me, they're not mutually exclusive with certain things that are implied. Like if you want to have a lawn for your 2-year-old, you don't have to buy a property. There are people with homes who rent them, and you can rent those properties that have land. You could go to that property that's $800,000 to $850,000, and you could rent that house. Maybe one of those is for rent, and maybe you could rent it out at $4,500 a month. Like, to me, that is a much safer proposition than buying the home yourself and taking on this gigantic liability without a whole bunch of cash to backstop unknowns, right? Like you could have the roof come in, you could have some other problem, and that could set you back 5 figures. And that's something that you need to deal with as a property owner. And you don't have a huge cash reserve to deal with emergencies here, or like a job loss. And your first house, it could seriously be a money pit. You just have, I mean, there's so many bad stories of people buying money pits. And if you at least rent something, you don't have to worry about that additional stress on your finances. But you never have to actually buy a house. You can get what you want and rent it. And in a lot of ways, it's much safer. Now, will you miss out on potential increase in your net worth because you don't own something? Absolutely you can, but you can invest in real estate and get other properties that make money and have those go up in value. If you own your own house that goes up in value, yeah, you get equity, but you also have increasing property tax and other problems associated with it. Okay, your own house is not an investment. So it's okay to rent. If you want some land, find some land if that's really important to you. Find the things that are really important to you, and prioritize those. But do you have to have $850,000 spent just to meet the things that you really, really want or need? I don't know. But you managed to get by in a $2,600 property for a while, but you have a 2-year-old. Maybe you want more space, but you might be able to do that without necessarily selling out 2 to 3 times as much money per month, at least until you're in a better financial position, like at least net worth zero. And I don't know, again, how old you are. If you're like 37 right now and you're not going to hit net worth zero until over 40, I mean, you're really, really delaying financial security if you take on another huge debt obligation like this. If you're like 30 years old, whole different ball game, right? That's a gigantic difference, a whole decade worth of earnings long term, and a lot more safety in terms of making sure that your finances can get you where you need to be able to live off of your own investments when you want to retire. Okay, that is it for today, for episode number 147. The stimulus actually finally got approved. Took about a week to get that final signature. Hopefully there'll be more payments out to individuals. I won't be getting it, but $600 is not that much per person. We'll crank out a few more episodes. I was off for the past handful of days for the holiday, but we'll get to 150 this week. Again, none of this is legal, professional accounting, any other advice whatsoever. Simply for my entertainment, hopefully yours. Until tomorrow for episode 148. Let me know what you want to hear about. Invite your friends to the Facebook group, 39.6 Community. Post your questions over there. Have a great night.